do it live. Okay. We'll do it live.
Drop the mic with Jason Hunt.
The softball, right? Because softball, my niece actually plays, like, we're here in Toronto, but my niece actually plays for a team, I think, down in Georgia. And there, the softball World Series is happening right now as well, isn't it?
I think so. I've seen it on TV a little bit. I don't follow it too much. I only really follow it because of my kids, because whatever sport they're in, I watch kind of around where they're at, and that's kind of what I end up focusing on.
That's cool. So your daughter is competing for the championships, for the American U.S. championships.
It's nationals, and she's playing. She's 15 years old, so she's a freshman in high school. So it's at that level. Man, there's so many different levels and leagues and stuff like that. But because they won this birthing tournament, they got placed in the national tournament, and they're going to be doing that. And I think it's in Huntington Beach, and it's the end of June or July. I got to look at the dates because I'll be traveling for that one too. It's about a week tournament that's going on then.
That's part of the fun of it, eh? Just being a sports parent is, having those experiences where you're in the car for like an hour or two road trip to a destination. You have that quality time together. That's one of the best things I love about sports, is going away to away games and tournaments and having that quality time together, as I'm sure you appreciate when they're at that age around 15 years old, where they just want to go hang out with friends and not too cool for dad now,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's some of the best times of those car rides, especially when they're in a good mood. The opposite is like when they lose their games and they did not too well, and then you get 2 hours of a quiet car ride on the way home. And they're just like upset with themselves. They don't want to talk to anyone. And you go like, I put so much effort in getting you here and doing all this. And then we come back and it makes you even more upset. But that's part of it. There's ups and downs. And that's like in any kind of profession too. You have those ups and downs, and you just gotta roll with it.
100%. And it's resilience that you're building through those conversations, right? It's like, you had a bad game. Like we have it with hockey all the time with our kids. It's like, you had a bad game. You had some bad shifts out there. You took a bad penalty. What are you going to do about it? You got to come back. And sometimes I find, like, when you're working with employees in your business, it's a similar type of relationship a lot of the time, right? Where you're kind of coaching them up and having their ups and downs and ebbs and flows on how productive they are and how to maintain, excellence day in and day out. It's and I find with sport, I think this is why sports is so important in the household, is to build that sort of character and resilience.
Yeah. And your kids, they play similar sports than what you were used to, right? Like the reason I bring that up, my two sons are in the wrestling team, and that's something I have no experience with. Like, I didn't do any, like, it's such an individualistic sport that has weird nuances to it that's different than the typical team sports like basketball and soccer that we normally play. And so I'm learning with them about the challenges. Like you show up by yourself, one person across the mat from another person. And I mean, it's almost the point where, like, they've both been thrown up on in matches. They both, like, I mean, there's a lot of weird stuff that goes on, which you don't see in other sports, like you don't have experiences like that, just how much energy goes in that one.
I think that offers a unique perspective, though, when you don't have a background in the sport, right? You can come at it with a totally different angle, that they're not used to, that a coach that's so embedded in the sport might be saying things that they learned years ago, where you're coming at it with like this entrepreneurial, mindset, right? Which kind of has a different sort of impact, I think, on kids at that age, and a unique one, right?
Yeah, it is. It's fun. And honestly, they become the resident experts on those areas too, which is true. Like, they know more than you do, on these things, especially if they're a little bit older, they pick it up so fast. And then your job is, to cheer, be as knowledgeable as you can, but knowing, as opposed to, I'd imagine yourself, having a background in rugby and seeing your kids in it, you always will have a little bit more of the knowledge base to offer them as far as the nuances of the game. But with, when a kid's in a sport that you don't even know really too well, like, why didn't you pin him in the second round? Like, go through all the technical moves of everything that he tried to do. It's just fun. That's all of it, like, neat experiences. And I think
you're experiencing it together too. Like, you're learning at the same time as they're learning, which is interesting as well, right?
Yeah.
So 100%. I mean, for me, I coach my girls in rugby, and it's, it's a sport. Rugby itself is, you can never know too much about it. Like, you're always learning it as well, especially in Canada, where, we're not from Ireland. We didn't grow up with rugby all the time, like hockey. Hockey's a little different, right? But, yeah, definitely. I think it's super important, and I'm so happy that my kids are loving it, and I don't need to push them into it. They actually love playing sports, which is great. So, yeah. So Wes, let's talk about you, because I think after our, we had a great conversation. Probably spent more time talking about Burning Man than business, but it was such a great conversation, and it was a no-brainer to have you come onto the podcast to talk. And maybe you can first and foremost talk a little bit about your history in business and what got you into the space that you're in today.
Oh gosh, yeah, where to start? I mean, it's been a while. I've been doing this for a long time, but it's fun. Like even today, I had a little aha. But I'll explain from the beginning here. My parents moved here from Brazil, so I'm a first generation American. They came with pretty much nothing, and I kind of grew up in that situation of just kind of making things happen, playing with whatever I had, and making situations that didn't exist happen because you didn't really have another alternative for that. When I finally, started high school and even started college, I started just kind of thinking of ideas that were outside the box. I feel like you can find the DNA of an entrepreneur early on in somebody. Like in second grade, I had a company, and in third grade, I had a company, and in fifth grade, I had this little. And these businesses never went too far. Some of them did all right, but never got too far. But when I was in college, I started investing in penny stocks and bulletin board stocks and pink sheet stocks, because I only had like $200-300 to my name, and I wanted to do something with it. I wanted my money to be working for me. And at that time, it was the dawn of the internet. So I'm older, right? So this is back in like 96, 97. Like this is all, there wasn't that much information out there. So I go like, well, why don't I build a blog? And the word blog wasn't even around back then, about like this investment opportunities. Like this company I think is really cool, and not that many people know about them. Let me post something about them. And so I picked up a whole bunch of 4-letter domains back then, which they were so easy to find, .coms. I wish I'd still have them today. I probably could retire just by owning the domains I used to own back in the day. And I would feature every week, every month, all these different investment opportunities in these penny stocks, bulletin board stocks, pink sheet stocks. And it took about a year, of just building traction. And I think I had maybe 50,000 subscribers to like one of these websites at the time. And we featured a company that was like at 20 cents. And then they went to $16, within a week or two of us talking about them. And instantly my net worth went from, pretty much nothing to like, I think, I don't know, $3 million in a short amount of time. And so I had 3 million, I cashed out probably 2 million. And at that point I said, okay, I'm going to hire, my friends. We can turn this into a real business. This is legit now. And so for the next 7 years, I ran a company called Stock Exposure. And that was throughout my college years and a little bit past my college years. Lots of ups and downs and all that. I wish it was like, oh, it's just amazing. Be an entrepreneur. You only win when you're an entrepreneur. It is so not the story, right? I mean, it's a roller coaster, and you got to be ready for it. But if it's exciting, because everything you do, it impacts you directly. And if you have a big win, you can kind of celebrate because that's your win. And if you have a big loss, hey, that's on you too. You can't blame anybody else really in the process. But that business came and went, but it created the path for me to continue to build every other business that I've built ever since. And everything has been kind of, you can see a trend that goes like, it's internet based. It's helping companies kind of get exposure. It's helping kind of marketing reasons. We're building, nothing physical, but all digital, kind of to let people know about businesses. And I've probably had about 7 or 8 companies that have done well, and I don't know, dozens of ideas that didn't go too far, but they're still great ideas. I still think they are. That's the problem though with an entrepreneur. You always think your ideas are great, right? Like that's kind of typical.
It's so true with just with the ideas, but you get to that point where you learn that it's like, this is another idea now. How viable is this an idea? What kind of manpower is needed to bring this idea to fruition? Because I love ideas. I love sitting around just coming up with new business ideas all the time. But how many of those actually don't go anywhere? Or how many have you tried to get somewhere, but it didn't just get off the ground at all? Right?
Yeah, no, a lot. But I think the thing that we can't do is consider it a failure. If you have an idea that even if you try a bit that doesn't go somewhere, I think the tendency a lot of times, like with academics and stuff, is we learn like, hey, if you try a test and you fail the test, that's bad. But in real life, if you try something and it doesn't work, that's valuable. That gives you more to go with, and as long as you're not, taking out $1 million loan to pull something off that fails, okay, now you're in trouble. But if it's just 3 weeks or even 6 months of work that doesn't go somewhere, that's not that bad. You can bounce back from that with more knowledge the next time around. Still to this day, I think some of my favorite companies are ones that didn't go anywhere that no one knows about. They're still in the back pocket that one day maybe they're ahead of its time or whatever the case is. But
I think the question people fail to ask themselves when they have an idea and they try to bring it to the forefront is like, what people are missing from making this project something or making this idea something? Because a lot of times I think people just try to like do it themselves without the piece in place. And I think the people that are at those initial stages of an idea, or the people that come on board for that idea, can really help propel it to that next step. And I think that's the challenging part, is finding those people in your inner circle that you can trust to partner with on an idea. Because I don't know about you, Wes, but I've had failed partnerships in the past, and I think that's so important, is choosing the right partners.
Yeah, the early stage people that you bring on board will have a huge impact on the success your business is going to have. If you bring on board the right person, it's such like a sigh of relief. Like, oh, I can't imagine what I'd be like without this person working with me. Have you worked with like actual partners? Like, you've had partnerships? Most of my businesses, I've been able to still kind of hold the 100% founder role in most of my companies.
Yeah, no, for myself, actually, it's always been partnerships. It's always been 50-50. And like my best partnership is the one I've had since 2019 with my current business partner, Todd Foster. He's, we merged our two agencies together.
Yeah.
And from there, he's the technical operations guy in the back end behind a computer doing that stuff, where I can do stuff like podcasts and be that brand ambassador. And it really, the two skill sets offset each other quite nicely, because he does not want to speak on stages and I don't want to be behind a computer all day. So it actually complements each other nicely, where in the past I've had partnerships where we are both this type of personality that wants to be the sales guy and talking to everybody and this and that. And then, well, who's doing that bookkeeping stuff? Let's figure that out. And then there's a bit of an overlap there. So I definitely think personalities matter. My business partner has 3 kids as well. I have 3 kids. There's a lot of similarities there. And I think finding those similarities in a business partner is key. But all power to you running 100% of the business and being that solopreneur living on an island. Full credit for that.
Yeah. But it is a team though, but just in terms of like structure and stuff, there's a lot of ways to do that part of it. But one thing I remember, and a lot of businesses that I've had currently, I have a great company today. It's a little different dynamic that I've had in the past. But when I was in college, starting at that point in the next few businesses, I was able to hire a lot of my friends or at least hire somebody that became a really good friend at the end of the day. And that's kind of a nice thing also about running a business, that I would say for people that are on the fence about being an entrepreneur or not. If you can do it right, it's just amazing, because you can have 5 people, 10 people that you really like spending your days with, and you can work with them, solving problems, accomplishing things. It's so much fun. Like, that was my joy, was to wake up. Mondays were my favorite day of the week. I get to go back and I get to hang out with my team. I get to deal with these problems and be with these people that inspire me, and I get to inspire them. And that's been most of my career. I've been fortunate to fall into that bucket. There's been a few seasons where it's not so much the case, but it's amazing to have a team that you wake up and you're excited to kind of get to work with and solve problems with. As opposed to sometimes, I think if you were a W-2 in a bigger company and they put you with a group of people that you maybe don't care to be with, you don't have control over that as much. You just kind of have to make the best of the situations you're put into. But as an entrepreneur, you can kind of create those situations for better or for worse. Yeah, it's kind of fun. I look forward to that.
So right now, let's go to current day and talk now, Wes, about what your interest. I know you've got a lot of stuff going on. I mean, it starts with Roll Digital, right? Yep. Obviously, but behind the scenes of Roll Digital, maybe give some insight in terms of specifically what you're working on these days.
Yeah. So Roll Digital is a little bit of just the backdrop of what it's a business model that I know that I'll always have. I can develop stuff online. I have a team of developers that has worked for me for 15 years, 17 years, for long periods of time, that I believe in. And I feel like we could walk into almost any business and ask what they need from a technology perspective. And in most cases, we can deliver on that. So that's kind of nice. But it's a service-based business, and a service-based business, I struggle scaling those. Kudos to anyone who's out here who's been able to take a service-based business and grow it to a sizable number. You need to manage people well, and you need to kind of keep on scaling with internal, team and hours, and that's a harder thing to do. I don't grow Roll Digital too much anymore at this point. I have my long-term retainer clients that I manage. We've been building Sales Connector, which is an offshoot from Roll Digital, and that's been going for the last 6 years. It's a SaaS platform. It's layered on top of LinkedIn. It allows people just to manage their connections, their conversations. It puts strategy in place for how to talk to people, when to talk to people, who to talk to. It really turns it into a sales pipeline funnel, as opposed to most people use LinkedIn in a way that they, it works a little. They don't know exactly what's being done inside there. It's hard to keep track of who you're connected to that's important, who's not, when you spoke to somebody, when you didn't, how to push conversations forward. It's a fun product that's constantly evolving. So I love that. That's one of my favorite things that I'm working on these days. And we have, I think we've had over thousands of clients at this point, and I have a pretty sizable staff of people working on that project alone.
So what types of people, is there a specific type of avatar that you have that's using Sales Connector on a regular basis? Is it consultants? Is it business owners? Who's using it?
Yeah. So because we've, like I said, we had a couple thousand clients at this point. There's so many different personas that we're able to work with. And I enjoy being able to talk to almost anybody and sitting down and having a strategy session and listening to their story and kind of saying, what, if you use LinkedIn, it seems like in 3 years from now, you're going to have this big investment opportunity in what you're doing, and you're going to need to find investors. Let's spend 3 years is a long time frame. We don't know that, but let's say in 6 months, let's connect to investors for 6 months. And then when you launch your business, we're going to pitch it to them, and you're going to have all these first degree connections you didn't have already. Or it's just coming up with a strategy of how to use LinkedIn better for whatever means you're going after. But consultants, coaches, small businesses are kind of our main clients today for that. But we do have the likes, of enterprise companies, several of them, and a lot of even big B2C companies, which is kind of rare, but I feel like that's a fun use case too. Staffing companies do very well with us on both sides. It's a wide mix. It's fun to kind of see that.
How are B2C companies using a platform like Sales Connector? How would they to connect with ideal customers?
Yeah. So like a use case, one of my best friends, he owns a restaurant, right? And he owns a restaurant, and he kind of had this conversation with Wes. I don't know, LinkedIn, Sales Connector, I don't know if it could really help me out too much. I go, let's go ahead and grab 2 or 3 of your servers that work there. Let's build LinkedIn profiles for them. Let's take their LinkedIn profiles. Let's do a geographical radius around your restaurant, maybe 20 miles. And let's invite everyone to come to your restaurant directly from these servers. And
so it's a connection request?
It's a connection request. Yeah.
And they're asking through the connection request, come check out a restaurant.
The verbiage is really important. Like you can't, so it's more like, hey, I don't know, like, I'm Susie. I work at, this diner, and don't know if you know about our restaurant yet, but I have a fun time working here, and I don't know if you've swung by. And then maybe later on she'll write another message to him saying, hey, if you do swing by, make sure you mention me, because we'll give you a free cheesecake or something like that at the end of your stay. And the thing that's nice about B2C that I kind of get excited about is it's not that saturated on LinkedIn. And so messages like that resonate so well. I remember like the gal that cuts my hair, she posted a post on LinkedIn about her haircuts, and she kind of has a picture of her with the beer in her hand. And she said something like, if anyone comes over here, not only they get a haircut, but they get a free beer and a great conversation, and that was her post on LinkedIn. And I kind of said, sold, I'm going to swing by. I got to check her out. And that's the type of person that it's easy for me to help, because if she reaches out to, every business director within, like 90% of them are going to say, okay, it's worth a haircut. I'm going to swing by there. And I mean, there's so much to the strategy of what goes on. We have a plastic surgeon in the Bay Area that uses us as well. And some of the stuff we can do that can't be done inside of LinkedIn, like targeting, gender. There's factors here that like I'm willing to have these conversations individually with anybody, all the fun things we can do. There's lots of tricks that are outside the scope of standard stuff that you can do that we're able to kind of help people accomplish using our software and system too. Got
to pop an example of a trick.
let's say, all right. So I'm curious who the audience for this is going to be. So I have to be a little bit just thoughtful in the whole process.
Yeah, I'd say entrepreneurs, marketing people.
Mhm. Like one thing we can do, because we take a list out of LinkedIn, and then we're able to run it through a lot of enrichment features before we even do anything with it, right? And through that enrichment process, like one of the enrichment tools, I love finding new tools and adding them to our software. It makes me excited. We have one that just does facial recognition. That's all it does. So it gets your profile photo and it runs it through an analysis, a third-party tool that I have a deal with. And it's going to get your your gender, it's going to get your age, it's going to get your ethnicity, it's going to get like so your primary emotions from your photo, and it actually has like I think 8 other variables in there that we have access to. Okay, just it's all kind of bundled into this one enrichment process, right? So if anyone wants to use any of those variables as a factor of how to reach out to that target list of 2,000, let's say if you're reaching out to entrepreneurs, right? And so you do entrepreneur search on LinkedIn and you come up with 2,000 people, right? Typically you'd send them a blast that would be identical to all 2,000 of them. Maybe if you look at one of these identifiers, oh, you know what? I feel like my offer to female versus male is very different and I want to make it an individualized pitch. Or if you're below 30, I want to talk to you one way. And if you're above 30, I want to talk to you another way. We can do that as well. Or an interesting use case was a church that was in Southern California. They wanted to target 30 to 40-year-old Hispanic people because they were a Spanish-speaking church, and they wanted to invite them to a potluck directly from the pastor of the church. That search would be almost impossible to do inside LinkedIn normally. And so we're able to take a group of people, canvas that group, find the variables that match, and then be able to target them that way. Yeah.
I think that's the critical piece to a lot of this automation is how can one person separate themselves from the noise of all the others out there, especially when you're actively prospecting businesses, right? And that's the big challenging part is trying to separate from the noise, because I can sniff out an AI message a mile away as you can. All right. So how do you really separate yourself? And I think that answers the question right there, doesn't it?
That's part of it. The two other parts that I would say, like one, your profile looking as good as you can, it matters a lot. And we have a lot of good data on that. That's something I think that really also sets us apart is I was just, even yesterday, I was looking at the charts we have out of the thousands of accounts we have. I can see the top performers. And I'm always able to evaluate like what makes them stand out. Why are they getting a higher connection acceptance rate? Why are they getting a higher engagement rate? Why are they getting like an 80% positive response rate to every message they're sending out? And using that data and compiling it into our own knowledge base, we can help new clients kind of come on board with similar strategies. And the truth is, it comes down to like relational copy. It really makes such a big difference versus salesy copy. That's a big part of it. If you walk up to a stranger and I start pitching what I do to a stranger, their automatic reflex is to say, you know, oh, no, thanks, I'm busy, I have no time, you know, maybe come back later. This isn't, you know, it's quick defensive, no thank yous, right? But if you walk up to a stranger and you just kind of like focus on this kind of friendly initial conversation relationship goal, and usually sometimes it's an offshoot question. I might ask a stranger if they happen to know of a coffee shop, you know, within a couple blocks, because I'm really need some coffee right now. And I feel like 95% of the people are going to respond well to that. They're not going to feel like that barrier. The people that get you to conversate without you even noticing that you're having a conversation, like, you know, like the opposite is the people, I smell this is a pitch, I smell this is AI, I smell this is a bot, and you got that. But then there's people that sneak in, and that's like, I've had 5,000 of these meetings, and I'm not exaggerating at this point. And most of the people go like, oh, I never respond to automation. I never respond to bots. I never respond to these softwares that kind of reach out to me. I got 5,000 meetings using the exact same system. And it's funny. It's like, oh, I'm glad you don't ever do that. But if it's well written and it's well done and it's using like, you know, proper techniques, and most of our stuff too, just for the audience to know, like I'm opposed to like spamming people with just blasted automation. I'm not a fan of that at all. As soon as we get a responsive person, everything is human to human interaction on our side, where there's no non-human interaction that happens post an engagement. But we have like at least 20 tools in our software that are going to help you find details with the person, put bumpers on the conversation. So you're going to conversate in a way that makes sense to the person at that time, in that stage, in that conversation. We use AI in so many fun ways. And that's also the buzzword, I'm sure, for like most businesses you're talking to nowadays is how are you using AI? It's fun to think of ideas there.
100%, and I want to break into that in a moment. But is there off the top of your head, Wes? Is there like a specific format for an icebreaker that you find works more than others on LinkedIn, just to get the attention and get people to pay attention and engage?
Yeah. It's funny. Like, I've been a marketer for a long time too, right? And as a marketer, sometimes you have this idea like, oh, I like this, so therefore I'm going to do it. Like, I think every book that has a blue cover on it looks really pretty in a bookstore. I'm going to make a blue cover for my book. But the data might show otherwise. And it's always good to follow the data, not follow your kind of intuition. And I've had so many stories where I thought this would be great, but then when I tested something else out against it, it ended up being better. So I think it was last month, maybe, I don't know, exact timeline on that one. I went through and dug through what's the best opener, and I'll give this to your audience as a free kind of little gift in there. There is a younger man that's using our software, and he made like one of his first openers to people. He graduated from Berkeley not that long ago. And so he reaches out to business owners that also graduated from Berkeley. That's kind of his target. There's a lot of people that have graduated from Berkeley, I guess. So there's a pretty plentiful bunch of opportunities in that. And all he says, go Bears. I graduated in 2018. What year did you graduate? And 85% of the people respond to that, and they're happy to start a conversation with that opener, which I would have never thought that would be a great opener per se. Like, I didn't, but I don't know, that school maybe has that alma mater feel to it. And asking, so I call that a good hook question. And that's the word, because you want to be able to, a little bit of the, is it, I'm forgetting the name, but the not too hot, not too cold kind of concept to it. If you ask something too simple, like, hey, what's your favorite flavor of ice cream? It doesn't matter as much. But if you ask somebody, what's the biggest problem your business has ever faced in the last 10 years? That's way too much. You got to dial it down to closer to the simple side. Like, oh, no way. You guys have an office in Chicago. Do you happen to have an office in more than in other cities as well? You've been a marketing leader. How long have you been a marketing leader? Like, questions that people are going to answer without even thinking too much about, and their ego is going to drive them to want to answer your question. I feel like are great openers there. I can talk about this for a long time, more than we have time on this podcast, but a shift that I kind of feel that made it an aha for me is we tend to approach LinkedIn and all these things saying, I want to give people value. I want to make sure that I'm going to be generous. I'm going to my first comment to them is going to be a link to my post that has this really good information stuff in there. And we think that by giving information, we're giving people value. But in this world, we're so cluttered with information. I don't need more gifts. I don't need more gift card. I don't need more things in my mailbox saying that I have a free whatever, But if somebody knocks on my door and says, Wes, I'd like to take, on a little time to get to know you. I want to hear about your story. Like, I want to just cheer for you and where you're at, understand your problems today, and just see if I can care for you in the current state that you're in. That's rare. You don't find people that approach, and we try to kind of translate that energy into how we communicate in LinkedIn. Oh, no way, you do this for business? Like, what even got you started in that? One of my best sales calls that was kind of towards me, a young gentleman as well. He got on a call and he goes like, Wes, I'm looking through your LinkedIn, your history, and it looks like you started not one but two companies before you graduated from college. Did you really do that? And instantly I got the ego smile, like, wow, like that's really fun. And I got to respond. Then he asked other good questions, and he asked if he could meet with me, and I said, of course. And he got on that call, and he just kept on asking all these flattering questions, which makes you feel great, right? At the end of the day, we all feel good when people kind of like notice stuff about us that most people don't notice. And at the end of the call, honestly, I don't care what you're selling. At that point, I'm going to be a client, because I related in such a way that you kind of showed that you cared for me by caring about my story. If you're selling insurance, if you're kind of whatever services you have, whatever SaaS product, hey, sign me up for a trial, I'm in. You did the work of getting to like kind of just show me that you care about where I'm at, and then I'm going to do that and return to you. And that's kind of what we try to teach our clients, that too. So it's not just a SaaS platform. It's a whole energy about how to approach this LinkedIn process of getting new business is what we try to coach people on. And we have tools that help with that. But really it's the whole process that makes it successful.
Care really does equal trust, doesn't it? Like
Yeah.
you're just showing that you care, but not just caring for the end game of getting the sale, but genuinely caring, right? Like no, without expectation, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the key, and that's probably a skill set that a lot of people need to practice, right? It's like, why am I spending these 2 minutes here talking to this person when I know they're never going to be a client? That's the wrong mindset to have,
100%.
you know. And because I mean, to case in point, like essentially, it sounds to me you really need to approach LinkedIn the same way you would approach any sort of a conference or a trade show, right? You're not just going to not talk to somebody and have a conversation with them because you can't do business with them. That one conversation with that one person that is in a totally different industry or niche could lead to a referral,
Yeah.
right? It could lead to so much more. So I think that's the key point, is when you have those conversations on LinkedIn and to genuinely have them. I was reminded of about years ago, a friend of mine was on Tinder, and he's like, Jay, I can't get any of these girls to respond to me on Tinder. And I was like, give me your phone for a second. I go on there, I write cheesecake ? And I wrote cheesecake ? To about 5 to 7 girls. And every single one of them responded to this message. He was trying for weeks to try to get a message saying, hey girl, what's going on? Hey, what's happening, baby? You know, but it took the message of saying cheesecake ? To make people inquisitive. Is he asking me out for cheesecake? Is he asking me what flavor of cheesecake I like? Why is he asking me about cheesecake? But it was that question that just started the conversation, got it rolling. It's almost like a question you would ask somebody at a bar, much like the questions you said there, right? It's like, Wes, you said, the questions you ask is something you would talk to somebody sitting next to you at a bar that you don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah. And quickly you can kind of see the people that have that in them. Like you probably do well on LinkedIn, kind of reaching out to people, because if you're able to kind of understand the nuance of how to have a relationship and how to care for somebody else and how to draw them in, it goes a long ways. And like you said, and double down on that, like it's not about landing the sale, it's about building the relationship. If you can, like so many of my calls too, they're the best calls, but I quickly know in the first few minutes I'm not going to land a sale. This is not going to turn into, but open curiosity is also a beautiful thing, and I think we share that in common, and that even it goes back to our previous conversation about Burning Man and stuff like that too, right? It's just about being curious and open, because you can receive so much and grow so much when you open up that energy. Like, hey, I have an hour with this person. They don't have any budget. They don't, whatever, their business is going through this weird transition, but this is a neat time for me to learn about this person. Like one of the guys, like he had in his profile, like a mindfulness practitioner was in his headline, and he had a bunch of other things in his headline. That's the trick also, I tell you guys, just make sure in your headline, don't just say what you do, but put a lot of stuff that's interesting about you, things that you're interested in. And it gives people much more reason to want to connect to you and talk to you. So he had mindfulness practitioner as one of his line items in his headline. And so when I got on a call with him, I started asking him questions about that. And I was blown away. This guy knows so much about like meditating and mindfulness, and he overcame like addiction and years of other issues just because of that. And I just like, I hour flew by, didn't have enough time to finish the conversation. I go, okay, we got to book another meeting. And we booked another meeting, and then hour flew by and booked another meeting. And I didn't even do a demo of anything that I did, probably until like our 4th hour of talking. But by that time, like, he became a client, and he brought on board, like, I think at least 5-6 other companies at this point to our software, just because he believes in us and believes in what we're doing. But that's a secondary thing, right? The primary thing is really like showing up, listening, exploring, getting to learn something new. I don't know, that's my heart in all this.
Yeah. So how right now, Wes, just in your personally, even in your business, in what specific ways or what best ways are you using AI in your everyday workflow and the way you do your business, your email follow-ups, all that type of stuff? How are you leveraging AI? What platforms are you using as well?
Yeah. I mean, I use it heavily, and I think a lot of people do, but I still feel like, and this is the entrepreneurial bug in there. Like I'm always, even if I made, $50 million last year, which I did not, I still probably beating myself up like, gosh, I could have made 500 million. Why did I drop the ball on this one? AI, I think, is one of those things where I'm using it in so many ways. Like in our software, it's really clever. Like every conversation that comes in from LinkedIn for all of our clients gets evaluated by AI ahead of time to put it in the right bucket, so you can kind of have an idea of how to respond to them. We have there's so many nuances to how we train the chats to be able to help us craft messages at any point in time inside the software. We're using AI. This is something that we just tested it this week, and we're about ready to launch it to help you find your ideal client. And so you're having a conversation with it. So there's a little button. It asks you all of these questions about the people that you're targeting. So when you have a list of thousands of people, like, that you're probably connected to, it'll go through all thousands of them and rate them 1 to 10 based on the criteria of the nuances of that. Maybe so to me, which is hard to catch. Like, even if somebody today, they are just a dog walker, they don't do any, like, that's their only job they have listed on LinkedIn. I walk dogs, but they happen to have 6 successful exits in their previous roles. That person's a high priority for me to talk to. Like, I want to talk to that person. That person has a lot of value to me, even despite their current role and maybe not being able to do much with me today. It's hard to use a regular search inside of LinkedIn that would be able to filter that out. But the AI knows now Wes cares about their history. He cares about them having, authority and influence in previous roles, where they could be a referral partner. They could be somebody that can open up doors to other businesses for him. And so the AI will go through, and it's impressive, like, how well it can go through that list and come up with, like, hey, this person's an 8.5 out of 10. Here's the reason. This person's a 6.5 out of 10. And here's the reason why. This person's only been an advisor in 10 companies. At an advisor, they're not really carrying budget authority inside that organization. And most of the companies that work with were in the healthcare system, and most of your contacts are not healthcare. They're more tech related than that. Or it is kind of fun. So we're using AI like that. Maybe this, you can throw this out to the audience if anyone wants to do this. We built a really fun a voice phone call system with AI, and we have all the bells and whistles to make it great. I just feel like I'm lacking a beautiful idea to turn it into like a multi-million-dollar business. But we have, I don't know, at least 10 different phone numbers with different prompts that people can call in, and one will help you like optimize your LinkedIn profile. Another one will help you. It'll go through our network and see if we have a referral we can give you immediately. So there's all these ideas, but I feel like every idea that I've come up with so far, it's I don't know, $100 or $1,000 idea, but there's still the $100 million idea that I feel like we're that close to it, but it's still just one prompt away from turning a business from $1 million into $100 million. It's just a difference of coming up with that better, the slightly better idea, the nuance there. And
how do you allocate your time? How do you plan your day? Like, when you have so many ideas like that, do you have a team behind you that's like vetting these ideas? And I'm sure that's one of the stresses on your mind. It's like, I really want to get to that idea that's on the shelf because I think it's timely and it's this, that, and the other, but I've got this going on right now and I can't get there. How do you manage resources to be able to accomplish all these ideas?
I wish I could say that I do it, perfectly and brilliantly, and I use Asana and all these other tools to track it, and it is. I think people with the entrepreneurial brain, maybe they also have a little bit of ADHD or something in there too. There's a lot going on in there. I do have regular meetings with my developers, which is probably my favorite kind of place where I can come up with creative ideas that actually turn into products at the end of the day. I have a great team, a good staff of leaders around me that I meet with a couple times a week in different kind of capacities. But yeah, I don't have a perfect solve for how to allocate my time. Like, partially having the team and then understanding the energies of the different players of the team is a big component of it, of running a business, and trying to make sure that every one of the people on your team is excited and enthusiastic about doing what they're doing is important, because I don't make these all 100% happen by myself. I need them to build them.
How big's the team?
So we're between 20 and 30 in that range right now with the Sales Connector team, and that's most of my staff is in that. And then on the web development, we probably have 6-7 that are in that space. But we're hiring. We have like 3 posts out there, right now. So we're looking for a couple different roles. So if somebody wants to join an exciting startup team and working with somebody like myself, feel free to
Did
try
you
to.
say Sales Connector is a $50 million company? Did I hear you say that?
No,
Okay.
it's not. No. I mean, it could be. It definitely has
Potential
potential.
there. Yeah.
Potential. That's the thing too, as an entrepreneur. Like everything's got a zillion things of potential. We're building here, I'll give you a sneak preview. This hasn't even been announced to the market yet. You guys are the first ones hearing about that one. We're actually launching my first physical product-based business, and we're calling it my Proxy box, and that is a little plug-and-play computer with a Raspberry Pi alternative like to it, but you just plug it into your router, and it has 3 products in one. And I don't know, I'm excited about this one, but it's there's certain people that are going to nerd out and kind of instantly know the value of this, and other people are going to say like, I don't quite get it. One, it's your own proxy server. So if you do any kind of automation with any other tools, instead of it running out in the cloud, it's actually going to run as if it's in your house, which is beautiful to make you much much safer on any of these platforms. 2 is it's your own VPN, which is kind of neat. The VPN runs from your own home IP, so you could be in Mexico and Cancun, and everybody in the world thinks you're still in your house. It's kind of nice because you're running all your traffic not through a random VPN server, but actually through your home network traffic that way, which is kind of neat. And there's a lot of use cases there that I can think of that could be really like important for people to have access to be able to always show their IP address as if they're in their house when you're out in the world. And the third one is it's a cloud server too. So you just plug any hard drive to it. You can buy at Costco a little 5 terabyte hard drive for pretty cheap nowadays. And all of a sudden you have 5 terabytes of cloud storage, just yours. And the nice thing is that you don't have to trust that Amazon is going to do what you hope they're going to do with it and keep it as safe as you want them to keep it safe. Like that has nothing to do with anybody else. You unplug the hard drive and it's yours, disconnected from the world, plug it back in, and you have access to it when you want to. So it's those 3 products, and it'll evolve into more. It's fun. Like, I don't know, I'm excited about it. I know in the automation space how important it is. Just that first product, the Proxy server, like I don't know. I haven't seen something like that. It's built out of necessity, which I think is good. So that should be launching still this summer here. People will be able to get access to that. That's one of the businesses I'm working on too.
Never-ending flow of innovations and ideas, and that's pretty cool, Wes. If we have any IT professionals that want to geek out with you, or anybody else has any questions for you that watched or listened to this episode, how can they get in touch?
I am Wes Lemos. You'll find me on LinkedIn. It's easy. Just go ahead and reach out to me that way. You could either go to rolldigital.com or salesconnector.com and just fill out one of those contact forms too, and you'll get a hold of me that way too. Just kind of mention that you heard about me here on this podcast, and I'll make sure that we'll schedule a half an hour. And honestly, it's not about a sale. It's about a relationship. You heard me here. And if I could figure out a way to encourage you in your business, or, learn from you or partner with you in some way, shape, or form. Yeah. Always open to the flow of where things go, as opposed to trying to dictate what we want them to be. I feel like that's how I like to roll, at least.
Love it. Wes, you're a rock star. Thanks again for your time.
Oh, absolutely. It's been a pleasure. Absolutely. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, podcast listener, for checking out that episode of Drop the Mic. If you liked that episode, I would love it if you went on over to your podcast platform and left us a 5-star review. And if you don't want to miss an upcoming episode of Drop the Mic, make sure you hit that subscribe button as well. Thanks again. We'll see you soon.